Good evening, ladies as well as gentlemen. I'm Papa Boris, and in this video, I'm going to do a character spotlight on one of the 4 characters in Tales from Candlekeep, Tomb of Annihilation. I'm going to make 4 videos, one for each character, and the reason that I'm doing this is that I want to just talk at length about all the characters in a separate place, so that when I do my playthrough, I don't have to, like, spend 10 minutes talking about the character. I can just be like, hey, if you care more, go watch my character spotlight videos. So that's what this is. In this first video, I'm going to start with Artus, because he's the guy on top, and we're going to work our way down in the subsequent videos. I'm not actually going to start this quest, I'm just going to go into it so we can see this guy's stuff. Artus is a ranger. It doesn't really matter in this game what class your character is, all that matters is what their abilities are, and in my opinion, he is the strongest overall character in the game. Obviously, character strength is not that significant at the moment, because there are only 4 characters, and you will pretty quickly unlock all 4 hero slots, so you'll always have them all. But, you know, if the game is updated in the future with more characters, such that there actually starts to be a choice as to who to bring with you, I cannot ever see not taking this guy because he is so good. So the way this game works is that with the at-wills, you have one that you actually are forced to take, which is a shame. I don't know why. I think it would just be cooler if you could choose 2 at-wills from a list of 3. So this bookmark thing is honestly garbage, but it doesn't really matter because Artus has, in my opinion, the strongest at-will power in the entire game, which is Careful Shot. So the way Careful Shot works is that it cannot target the monster on your tile. That's kind of the drawback. In exchange for that drawback, you can target any monster within 2 tiles, and you get a really sizable attack bonus. You get a plus 10 to your d20 roll. So this is the most accurate at-will power in the entire game. Its damage is fine, because all at-wills generally just do 1 damage. So it doesn't take a hit to damage. The only drawback is this thing that you cannot target monsters on the same tile as you. But other than that, you know, you get a really huge attack bonus for standard damage, and you're off to the races. Now, having beaten the game and played many of the missions multiple times, I have found that this drawback of not being able to attack the monster on the same tile applies 0 or 1 times per scenario, and usually 0. 0 is way more common than 1. The reason for that is simply that either you can move and get off the tile and then shoot at the monster, or you can start by shooting at the monster and then move on to its tile. It's really, really rare that you cannot hit the monster either before or after you move. So this thing is just amazing. You pretty much never use bookmark. I mean, yes, it's really cool to recharge in a utility, but obviously you cannot count on it. And using an at-will with only a plus 6 attack bonus is just really, really damn pathetic. So, yeah, you're never going to use this. You're just going to be shooting at monsters pretty much all the time. And this is only if, like, for whatever reason, you just have to attack a monster next to you. The sad thing is that Artus's other at-will power, the Stealthy Assault, is actually quite good. It is a melee power, but it has a lot of range because you essentially move next to the monster that is within 1 tile of you, and then you attack it with melee. Yeah, the attack roll really blows, but you have mobility on a melee power, so it's totally fine. I would definitely pick this over the bookmark, but it doesn't really make any difference because, again, you're pretty much always going to be doing Careful Shot. Now, Artus has some pretty good utilities as well. So he's got lightning reflexes, which is very strong, although easy to overlook at first. What happens is after using an at-will power, you get disadvantage, and then you repeat the last at-will power that you used. So this may seem kind of bad, but it is a free action, so it's essentially a utility power that allows you to get an extra attack on your turn, which for Artus means an extra Careful Shot. And because this is a really accurate at-will, the fact that you're getting disadvantage on the attack, meaning you roll 2 dice and take the lower of the 2, is actually not that significant. So for example, take a monster early in the game that's got an armor class of 15. You're going to hit that monster on a roll of 5 or higher. Rolling 2 dice and getting a 5 or higher both times is not guaranteed by any means, but it's also not that, like, difficult to do, so you're pretty likely to get that extra damage. Furthermore, as you upgrade your primary weapons and get further bonuses to the attack and damage rolls of your at-wills, this becomes even better because you're less likely to miss monsters and you can do more damage. So for example, when you get a plus 2 weapon, which will happen about midway through the game, if not earlier, your Careful Shot is doing 3 damage, and so you can do 6 damage in a single turn with a utility. That's really, really good. The other really good at-will power is Jump, and what this does is, as a free action, it allows Artus to move himself up to 2 tiles, which is a really, really large distance. You can use this for a lot of different things. You can do this to make sure that you can use Careful Shot if you do run into the situation where you need to shoot at a monster at the same tile as you and you can't with Careful Shot. You can use this to move up to a trap, disarm it, and then jump to the edge of the tile so that you don't trigger an encounter. You can use this to jump past traps and open treasure chests, but honestly, this is a turn-based, grid-based game. If you've played a lot of those games before, you know that a free action that allows you to move a huge distance is a good thing, because mobility in these types of turn-based games is very strong. Now, the fact that you can actually move somebody else is just gravy. I, in my beating of the game, only ever used it to move Artus himself. It would be an amazing power with just being forced to use it on himself. The fact that you can maybe use it on someone else just takes an already amazing utility and makes it even more amazing. Now, the final utility power, Pass Without Trace, is absolute garbage, but it doesn't really make any difference because you can just use the other two, and they are amazing. Feel free to argue with me in the comments if you want to make a case for Pass Without a Trace. I just don't think this is very good. The main problem with this is that you can move through traps, but if you end on a trap, you still trigger it, and most traps are on the edges of tiles, so what you really want to do is end on a trap, and this utility does not let you do that. Even if it did, I still wouldn't take it because the other two are so good, but it doesn't even do the main bottom of the barrel thing it would need to do to even be considered as a utility power. It's just total crap. So I would never ever take it. Now let's talk about the dailies. Artus's special power as a character is that he gets 2 extra dailies from their own special list. It's not as exciting as it seems because you don't really use them that much. You can only use them once per day, and many times a scenario will go by and you never ever used a daily. But it's fine. The rest of him is so strong that I don't really care about the daily situation. So I'm not going to belabor the discussion of the dailies, except to say that most likely you'll always want Lightning Arrow for your main one. The reason for that is simply that it's the only one that is ranged, and what I found is that with Artus, because the Careful Shot is so good, you pretty much want to use that most of the time, and walking up to a monster and doing melee is not that advisable. Now, early in the game, before you get any primary weapons, you could, for example, consider using Desperate Strike to guarantee 2 damage on an adjacent monster. I would not use Twisting Strike in general in this game. The powers that are not spent if the attack misses are the worst ones. The reason for that is simply that you would much rather have, just spent the power and done some damage to the monster, even if it's much less than the total value, than have achieved nothing for your entire turn but kept the power. Because this is not a grinding kind of game. You can't just sit around and trade blows with a monster forever. You're going to be drawing encounter cards every single turn. You need to, snap, 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 get along and move pretty quickly. So this is bad. Don't use that. Use Desperate Strike early on if you feel like it. But once you get a +2 weapon for your At-Will's primary weapon, and Careful Shot is doing 3 damage, that's the same as Desperate Strike. Sure, Desperate Strike is guaranteed 2 damage, but, this is going to be at +12. It's going to hit most of the time. You're just not ever going to need to take a daily slot up with it. Lightning Arrow, though, has some value. It deals a guaranteed 1 damage to adjacent monster, which is sometimes useful. It can target a monster on the same tile, which is sometimes useful. And of course, it does damage on a miss. So typically, I just take Lightning Arrow, and in those rare situations where I want to shoot at a monster on the same tile, I will use it instead of Careful Shot. Now let's talk about the ring powers. So there is Flesh to Ice, which I think is absolutely horrific. It kills an enemy instantly, not a villain, obviously. And it's not spent if the attack misses, which, as I've talked about, is an indicator of a bad power. And its attack bonus is 0. It has no bonus, so you're not that likely to hit the monster. Even like a crappy monster with an AC of 14, you're actually not very likely to hit it if your attack bonus is frickin' 0. And the fact that it's not spent is just terrible. So what I would have liked to see is a power that, say, damages Artus, is guaranteed to hit and is guaranteed to kill an enemy instantly, or has some other kind of detriment but kills an enemy instantly. One that actually requires you to land the attack roll and is just nothing on a miss is really, really bad. Maybe if it did half damage on a miss, I don't know. The point is, it's garbage, never take it. Then you got Ice Fist. This is actually fine. It does have the terrible, terrible, terrible not spent if the attack misses, but the attack bonus is decent, and stunning is a really good ability. So this is one of those where if you're, fighting a villain, for example, it's really good to deal 3 damage and block one of the villain's attacks. Especially some of the villains later in the game, which cast very powerful spells that do a ton of damage to your entire party. Being able to block one of those is actually quite significant and worth, not spending a careful shot, for instance. So this one's okay. The last two are very similar to each other. They're both AoEs. Cone of Cold is a little bit smaller range. It only works 1 tile away, whereas Ice Storm works within a whopping 4 tiles, although it's not as exciting as it sounds because of line of sight rules. You often can't take advantage of the full range. But anyway, Cone of Cold is a little bit better to hit, a little bit better damage. Ice Storm is a little bit worse to hit, a little bit worse damage, but it has a longer range. They're both AoEs. And sometimes I will just take both of them because being able to hit more than one monster to me is more valuable than maybe getting to stun an enemy. But if you just pick 2 out of the 3, you're going to be fine. Just don't take Flesh to Ice. Okay, so that is a quick look at his powers, and of course, I did mention this a little bit in the crafting guide, but let's talk about crafting for Artus. If you want the full explanation of the crafting system, definitely check out my crafting guide video, but briefly for Artus, you definitely want main weapons, which is something I'm going to say for everybody. Secondary weapons, he is the character in the game that benefits the most from these, because obviously he's the one that has triple the daily powers of everyone else, 3 instead of 1. But I would still say that this is a secondary priority after giving everyone a good main weapon and a good armor. Armor is something that you should upgrade, I think, for every character after main weapons. And then his accessories, bonus to speed, this is one of those where his speed is already pretty high. He has the fastest speed. But being able to just, later in the game when you're just drowning in common ingredients and have a lot of gold, spending 750 gold to give him a +1 speed is totally fine. I've never really wanted more than that, but once you get to the point, I guess, where you're swimming in uncommon ingredients, you can go up to +2 speed. Personally, I wouldn't do this because 2,000 gold is always a lot. But this one is a really nice deal, so it's one of the few crafted items where just the level 1 version is a pretty darn good deal. Alright, well that'll do it for my spotlight on Artus. I hope that you enjoyed it, and will like and subscribe to my channel if you did. Otherwise, I'll see you soon for some more character spotlights. Take care.